Which is better, proactivity or reactivity? This feels like a loaded question. After all, be proactive is the first of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people. And in my own books, I talk about self-leadership. I talk about being the driver, not the passenger, in your life and career. The driver in this metaphor is proactive, taking ownership and control, whereas the passenger is passive or reactive. So, reactivity is best, right? Well, it depends. In addition to self-leadership, I coach and write about leadership. And leadership depends on context. In what context might reactivity be better than proactivity? Well, before I answer that, let's make sure we know what we're talking about with proactivity and reactivity. Proactivity is about making life happen, being the driver, whereas reactivity is letting life happen to you, responding or being the passenger. Proactivity sounds more attractive. After all, who wants external forces to control how they live their life? Typically, a proactive employee is seen as someone who is constantly striving for self-improvement and new opportunities, whereas a reactive person merely finishes their tasks and waits for new orders. Using critical thinking, however, we discover that the reality is far more complicated, and the discussion concerning these two approaches should be given more attention. As an employee, there is an ideal approach to proactivity called personal initiative, developed by Doris Fay and Michael Frez in the early 2000s. Personal initiative is defined as the work behavior of someone that is tenacious in overcoming new challenges through preparedness and active engagement. Proactivity can include taking initiative in pursuing personal and professional goals, acting in anticipation of events, revising and improving upon tasks, and many other factors. In short, what I would call self-leadership. Applied correctly, proactivity can benefit both the individual employee in terms of their fulfillment and success, as well as the organization and team as a whole. All this sounds wonderful, doesn't it? And it is true that proactivity is an admirable approach to one's work. However, proactivity can only be utilized up to a certain level and depending on context. Proactivity allows you to formulate and carry out the most intricate and well thought out plan. However, what happens when a tiny or huge detail in that plan is affected by circumstances beyond your control? In such a case, this is where reactivity can be and must be utilized. Being able to react rapidly and adapt to shifting conditions is essential in business. Being exclusively proactive leads to a lack of adaptability in the face of change, which is a key success factor in leadership and management. However, being exclusively reactive will lead to a lack of development on the part of the individual who does not have the proactivity to learn and better themselves. Let me give you an example to illustrate that there's a complementary nature between proactivity and reactivity. Businesses are always planning ahead to increase the chances of their success each quarter. There are certain things which can be planned for, such as the release of a new product or service, the time it will be released, what it will be, and a plan around who will buy it. They can also plan to account for a competitor releasing a new product in different ways or at different times that will respond to that competitive situation. They can plan to innovate their business model to adapt to a changing market. But some things cannot be planned for. Some things cannot be predicted and must be reacted to in the moment. This is the case of what we have all been through since 2020. Very few could have predicted the impact that the pandemic had on almost every facet of our world. Many companies ran into failure after failure through the early stages, and in those cases there was very little they could do to face or adapt to these challenges. However, there were some cases where companies would hit a brick wall and, in response, regroup, adapt, and respond or react to those challenges. Such examples include Disney, which shifted a large part of its business into the streaming platform Disney Plus to maintain a consistent revenue stream. Throughout the shifting landscape of the pandemic, they reacted. In terms of proactivity, Disney had created many sources of revenue to diversify their offerings and revenue streams, but they needed to react to the pandemic, so they focused on a particular part of their business to maximize their earnings, despite the challenges they were facing. And of course, there is always Zoom, a name which I'm sure many of you are tired of hearing. However, it is important to acknowledge the success Zoom experienced as a result of the disruption we've all been through. Zoom saw a gap in the market and took advantage of that. They offered a platform which businesses needed but did not have. In doing so, they adequately reacted to the changing landscape, resulting in success for the company. The lesson to be taken from these examples is that one can and should plan ahead and make a proactive position in the direction of one's own future, as well as the future of business. However, it is not possible to plan for every possibility, in which case it is necessary to have the skills necessary to react to whatever challenges you may face in the uncertain future. So I hope you get the balance between proactivity and reactivity. If you have a question or comment, please comment below, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you receive notifications of my latest videos and insights. I'm Andrew Bryant. To your success.